Very good morning. You're watching the news at 10 on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. And in the next 30 minutes, I'll be taking you through the biggest developing stories from India and across the world, and also the stories that you might have missed during the night. Let us start the bulletin with the headlines. Home Minister Rajnath Singh says situation in Kashmir Valley has improved significantly, says the security forces told to avoid use of excessive force while dealing with law and order problems. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to begin two-day visit to India from Wednesday to hold a 12th annual India-Japan summit with Prime Minister Modi to lay foundation stone for India's bullet train project. Chief Justice of India writes to Chief Justice of High Courts, asks them to set up special benches on Saturdays for hearing criminal appeals in which legal aid has been provided. United Nations imposes fresh sanctions on North Korea, sets a cap on oil exports to the regime, bans textile exports from there, no asset freeze on Kim Jong-un. And Irma continues to wreak havoc in the United States. Several Florida cities are flooded, massive power cuts. MEA says evacuation of Indian nationals from Caribbean island of St. Martin, top priority. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday addressed a students' convention to mark the 125th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago address and BJP ideologue Deen Dayal Upadhyay's centenary celebrations. Now, addressing the event, the Prime Minister stressed on the need for all Indian citizens to join in the campaign for a clean India. The theme of the convention was a Young India, New India.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday expressed hope that youth power will steer the nation towards job creation, cleanliness and social change. Speaking at the Vigyan Bhavan in New Delhi, he urged students to focus on cleanliness while campaigning for university elections. The Prime Minister also said that those who clean roads have the first right to chant Vande Mataram.
50 बार सोच लीजिए क्या हमें वंदे मातरम कहने का हक है क्या? हम वो लोग पान खा करके उस भारत मां पर पिचकारी मारे और फिर वंदे मातरम बोले? हम वो लोग सारा कूड़ा कचरा भारत मां पर फेंके और फिर वंदे मातरम बोले?
Referring to Swami Vivekananda's Chicago address as 9/11, the Prime Minister said the day entered public imagination after the 2001 terror attack in the US, but there was another 9/11 in 1893 that was all about love, harmony and brotherhood.
विश्व को 2001 से पहले ये पता ही नहीं था कि 9/11 का महात्म्य क्या है। दोष दुनिया का नहीं था, दोष हमारा था कि हमने ही उसे भुला दिया था। और अगर हम न भुला देते तो शायद 21वीं शताब्दी का भयानक 9/11 न होता।
The Prime Minister's speech to mark the 125th anniversary of Swami Vivekananda's Chicago address and the centenary celebrations of Deen Dayal Upadhyay was heard by university students across the nation via video conferencing on Monday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi addressed the University of California, Berkeley in the United States. Now speaking on India at 70, he reflected on contemporary India and the path forward for the world's largest democracy. Rahul Gandhi was on a two-day visit 2-week visit to the United States to interact with the global thinkers, political leaders and overseas Indians, spoke on the political environment in the country, job creation, the Congress party, the effects of demonetization, among other issues.
We are not producing enough jobs. 30,000 new youngsters are joining the job market every single day. 30,000. And yet, the government is only creating 500 jobs a day. And this does not include the massive pool of already unemployed youngsters. The decline in economic growth today is worrying and is leading to an upsurge of anger in the country.
On to the other top story. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will begin his two-day visit to India on Wednesday. Now, during the visit, he, along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, will hold the 12th India-Japan Annual Summit in Gujarat's capital, Gandhinagar. The two leaders will look at ways to enhance the multifaceted relations between the two countries and carry forward their special strategic and global partnership. The summit takes place amid a rising tension in the Far East after North Korea tested a hydrogen bomb recently and launched a ballistic missile over Japan, and the growing Chinese assertiveness in the South China Sea. Now, this will be the 4th annual summit between Prime Minister Modi and Abe, during which the focus of the talks is expected to be on trade, defense and infrastructure. The two leaders have met 10 times in the last 3 years, with the last being on the sidelines of the G20 summit at Hamburg in the month of July. Prime Minister Modi had also earlier visited Japan in November last year, while Shinzo Abe had visited India in December 2015.
Our shared values of openness, democracy and respect for the rule of law, and a high degree of convergence in the political, economic and strategic interests provide an enduring basis for a strong partnership between India and Japan. And we are confident that Prime Minister Abe's visit will present an occasion to demonstrate this concretely.
And in related news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe, will lay the foundation stone for India's bullet train project. The work for the Ahmedabad-Mumbai high-speed rail project will begin this month, and it is slated to be completed by 15th of August 2022. Now, 92% of the project is elevated, while 6% is a tunnel.
India will soon be among the 15 nations where bullet trains operate. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Japanese counterpart Shinzo Abe will lay the foundation stone for the proposed Ahmedabad-Mumbai high-speed rail network, commonly known as the bullet train, on September 14th. Japan is a leader in bullet train technology and has been operating it with an incident-free track record for 5 decades. The bullet train, which has a capacity to accommodate 750 people, is expected to reduce travel time between the two cities from 7 to 3 hours. The maximum speed for the bullet train in India is 320 kilometers per hour.
सब चाहते हैं सुविधाजनक, तेज गति से चलने वाली ट्रेन्स भारत में आए। इन दोनों महानुभावों के करकमलों से इस काम को शुरुआत की जाएगी। ये भारत के आगे के की व्यवस्था को पूरी तरीके से, रेल की व्यवस्था को पूरी तरीके से रेवोल्यूशनराइज, ट्रांसफॉर्म करने वाला इनिशिएटिव परसों शुरू होने जा रहा है।
The 508-kilometer long project is estimated to cost 1,10,000 crore rupees on completion. Out of it, Japan is giving a loan of 88,000 crore rupees. The interest on this loan is a minimal 0.1%, and it is to be repaid in 50 years with a grace period of 15 years. The project is expected to provide 12 to 15 lakh jobs. A high-speed rail training institute is also being set up in Vadodara for the project to train the nearly 4,000 people needed for its smooth operation. The project will also see the longest tunnel in India being constructed. The 21-kilometer long tunnel will have 7 kilometers of its stretch under sea.
तो मैं समझता हूँ इतने कम खर्चे में इतनी बड़ी व्यवस्था बुलेट ट्रेन की भारत में आना, उसके इर्द-गिर्द लाखों लोगों को नौकरी मिलना, काम के अवसर मिलना, उसके इर्द-गिर्द नई टेक्नोलॉजी आने से भारत के उद्योग जगत को और प्रोत्साहन मिलना, भारत सस्ती बुलेट ट्रेन बनाए और पूरे विश्व में एक्सपोर्ट करे, उसका मौका शुरू करना।
The groundwork for the project is in place and the process of land acquisition is in completion stage. On the Ahmedabad-Mumbai route, a total 12 stations have been proposed that include Mumbai, Thane, Virar, Boisar, Vapi, Bilimora, Surat, Bharuch, Vadodara, Anand, Ahmedabad and Sabarmati. Apart from the Railway Ministry, the state governments of Gujarat and Maharashtra are also assisting in implementing the project. Arvind Kumar Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
On to some other news now. Belarus President Alexander Lukashenko is in India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold talks with the visiting president today. Belarus President was accorded a ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where he was greeted by President Ramnath Kovind and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, among others. The thrust of the talks between the two sides will be defence, trade and investment. Lukashenko will also meet President Ramnath Kovind, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu and External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj during his two-day visit. Now, this is Lukashenko's third state visit to India as the President of Belarus, the last one being a decade ago. His visit comes in a year Belarus and India are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations.
У нас установились очень давние дружеские отношения, и корнями они уходят во времена лучших наших отношений, во времена существования Советского Союза.
We have established already a strong relationship, and they have their origin at the best times of our peoples during the Soviet Union time.
News from Jammu and Kashmir now. Home Minister Rajnath Singh has once again appealed to Kashmiris to stay away from stone pelting. He also instructed the security officials to avoid using excessive force while dealing with law and order problems in the valley. Rajnath Singh, who is on a 4-day visit to Jammu and Kashmir, also said that the situation in the valley is improving.
On the fourth and final day of his Jammu and Kashmir visit, Home Minister Rajnath Singh said that the situation in the valley has improved significantly over the past year. Singh said that the permanent solution to the Kashmir issue is based on 5 C's: compassion, communication, coexistence, confidence building and consistency.
हालात दिनों दिन बेहतर हो रहे हैं। मैं यह दावा नहीं करना चाहता कि पूरी तरह से ठीक हैं, लेकिन हालात पहले से बेहतर हो रहे हैं। यह मैं विश्वास के रखता हूं।
Responding to the question whether the government was ready to hold talks with separatists, Rajnath Singh said that he was open for talks with anyone who wants to resolve the Kashmir issue and that the government does not want to leave out any stakeholders.
यहां आने के बाद सिविल सोसाइटी के बहुत सारे डेलीगेशन से जहां हमारी बातचीत हुई है, उसमें नॉन पॉलिटिकल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से वो भी मिले हैं, स्टूडेंट्स भी मिले हैं, टीचर्स भी मिले हैं, मेजर पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज के लीडर्स भी मिले हैं। सभी के साथ हमारी बातचीत हुई है।
Singh also said that the security forces have been instructed to avoid use of excessive force while dealing with law and order problems in the valley.
जो छोटे बच्चे हैं, below 18, इनमें से बहुत सारे ऐसे बच्चे होंगे जिन्होंने कि किसी के बहकावे में आकर पहली बार कोई क्राइम किया होगा, कोई गुस्ताखी की होगी, कोई गलती की होगी। लेकिन उनके साथ अपराधी की तरह, क्रिमिनल की तरह ट्रीट नहीं किया जाना चाहिए। जो भी कार्रवाई करनी है जुवेनाइल एक्ट के तहत ही होनी चाहिए। दहशतगर्दों ने कश्मीर की कई पीढ़ियों को बर्बाद किया है, दहशतगर्दी के कारण बर्बाद किया है, और यकीनन हम एक और पीढ़ी की जिंदगी को किसी भी सूरत में खराब नहीं होने देंगे।
In the last 3 days of his visit, Singh met civil society members, business leaders and interacted with police jawans, CRPF and BSF personnel in the state. Singh also held meetings with Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti and National Conference leader Omar Abdullah. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu on Monday released a documentary film Kumbh, Eternal Journey of Indian Civilization. Naidu said that citizens, especially the younger generation, should be fully acquainted with the roots of Indian culture, ethos and history. The Vice President said that the knowledge, understanding and history about the country was known through the perspective of foreign writers. He further said that the Kumbh Mela illustrates that India is the spiritual capital of the world and it is an event where great spiritual integration of people takes place. Now, stating that culture and religion were not the same, the Vice President complimented that India Inspires Foundation and the Indus University who made the Kumbh Mela documentary.
This is a glowing symbol of India's rich spiritual heritage. The Kumbh Mela is the world's largest and biggest gathering of pilgrims at one event seen at the Kumbh Mela, where millions of people across the country and also from abroad, they come here to the holy rivers and then they take bath and also they gather there to purify themselves. So Kumbh Mela illustrates that India is the spiritual capital of the world. While the Purna Kumbh Mela is held at Haridwar, Allahabad, Nasik and Ujjain every 12 years. When we talk of culture, we are not talking of religion. Religion, according to me, according to Indian belief, is a way of worship, whereas culture is a way of living.
On to the other top story of the day. Chief Justice of India Deepak Mishra has written to the Chief Justices of all High Courts asking them to set up special benches on Saturdays for hearing criminal appeals in which legal aid has been provided. The CJI's letter highlights the issue of increasing pendency of cases, especially criminal appeals, due to delay in disposal. Now, CJI Mishra also noted in his letter that some of the Chief Justices of the High Courts have already agreed to go ahead with the project immediately commencing from 9th of September. News from down south now, and a faction led by Chief Minister Palanisamy has convened the AIADMK's General Council and Executive meeting in Chennai today. Now, this meet aims to take a decision on the removal of its chief, B.K. Sasikala. Remember, the expulsion of Sasikala has been the main demand of the OPS camp prior to the formal merger of the two factions on 21st of August. Now, party's presiding chairman, E. Madhusudan, will preside over the meeting. Earlier on Monday, the Madras High Court had refused to stay the meeting on the appeal of TTV Dinakaran. The court made it clear that any decision taken at the meeting will be subject to the final outcome in the appeal and had posted the matter to 23rd of October. And on to an update on situation in Darjeeling. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee will visit Darjeeling to hold the second peace talk meeting over the Gorkha land impasse today. The meeting will be held in the North Bengal branch of the State Secretariat. A 7-member delegation of the Gorkha Janmukti Morcha will also participate in this meeting. It also urged the centre to hold a tripartite talk to resolve the crisis. The Gorkha National Liberation Front and others will also participate in this meeting. Meanwhile, the police and administration has appealed to the locals to open their shops and restore normalcy in the hills. Peace rallies were organized by the residents in Kurseong, Darjeeling and Mirik. However, JJM supporters took out rallies in support of Gorkha land state and the continuation of the ongoing shutdown. Let's get to some international news now. The United Nations has said that the situation in Myanmar is a textbook example of ethnic cleansing. The remark by the UN Human Rights Chief Zeid Ra'ad Al Hussein came as the number of Rohingya Muslims fleeing Myanmar for Bangladesh has now topped 3 lakh. The UN Human Rights Chief accused Myanmar of waging a systematic attack on Rohingyas and warned that ethnic cleansing seemed to be underway. The UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar has said that the latest violence may have left more than 1,000 people dead, and most of them Rohingyas.
The current situation cannot yet be fully assessed, but the situation remains or seems a textbook example of ethnic cleansing.
Big story on North Korea now. The United Nations has imposed a fresh set of sanctions against North Korea in the wake of the latest massive nuclear test which was conducted by the regime recently. However, these sanctions were passed unanimously only after the US watered down its original tough resolution that called for blocking all the oil supplies to North Korea and also freezing off Kim Jong-un's assets. Meanwhile, stepping up pressure against North Korea, now Peru has expelled North Korean ambassador, giving him 5 days to leave the country. Peru's move comes after Mexico had declared North Korean ambassador persona non grata and had expelled him. The United Nations Security Council stepped up sanctions against North Korea, imposing a ban on the country's textile exports and capping imports of crude oil. The 9th sanctions resolution against North Korea since 2006 was unanimously adopted by the 15-member council.
The draft resolution received 15 votes in favor. The draft resolution has been adopted unanimously as Resolution 2375 of 2017.
Strengthening sanctions today.
The resolution was passed after the United States watered down an initial tougher draft resolution. The demands were toned down after U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, held a series of closed-door meetings with her Chinese and Russian counterparts ahead of the Security Council vote to win their support. The revised draft sets up a cap on oil exports to North Korea, but it doesn't block them altogether. Nor does the resolution impose a travel ban or asset freeze on the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un as demanded in the earlier resolution.
Today's resolution would not have happened without the strong relationship that has developed between President Trump and Chinese President Xi, and we greatly appreciate both teams working with us. We don't take pleasure in further strengthening sanctions today. We are not looking for war. The North Korean regime has not yet passed the point of no return. If it agrees to stop its nuclear program, it can reclaim its future.
The sanctions against North Korea include ban on condensates and natural gas liquids, a cap of 2 million barrels a year on refined petroleum products, a cap on crude oil exports to North Korea at current levels, ban on textile exports from North Korea. Backing the sanctions, Russia and China have urged North Korea to take the resolution seriously and put an end to its nuclear program.
中方敦促朝方正视国际社会要求朝方停止核岛开发的 愿望和意志，切实遵守和执行安理会决议。
Считаем крупной ошибкой недооценку этой российско-китайской инициативы. Она остается на столе Совета Безопасности ООН, и мы будем настаивать на ее рассмотрении.
We believe that these measures, if fully implemented, will significantly undercut North Korea's capability to pursue further nuclear weapons development. The resolution also sends a clear message to Pyongyang that enough is enough.
The toughest UN sanctions so far against North Korea come in the wake of North Korea's 6th and biggest nuclear test last Sunday. Pyongyang claims it tested a hydrogen bomb that can be loaded onto an intercontinental missile. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. News from Britain now, and the government's bid to separate from EU law in time for Brexit has passed its first parliamentary test as the British Parliament voted in favour of EU withdrawal bill. Now, British MPs backed the EU withdrawal bill by 326 to 290 in a late-night vote on Monday after over 8 hours of debate. The bill, which will end the supremacy of EU law in the UK, severing all political, financial and legal ties, will now move on to its next parliamentary stage. The opposition Labour Party had called on the government to make concessions on the bill, saying that several clauses in the legislation amount to a power grab by the government. However, Prime Minister Theresa May welcomed the Commons vote in the early hours of Tuesday morning, saying that the bill offered certainty and clarity. But the Labour described it as an affront to parliamentary democracy. Having cleared now the second reading stage, the bill will now face more attempts to change it, with Conservative MPs believed to have tabled new amendments. Big story coming in from the United States, and despite being downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm, Irma continues to wreak havoc in the U.S. It has flooded several Florida cities with heavy rains and a high surge of seawater. It has cut power to millions of people and has ripped the roof of homes. Now, one of the most powerful hurricanes recorded in the Atlantic, Irma is now moving into Georgia. Now, with an estimated damage of $20 to $40 billion, U.S. President Donald Trump has vowed a full response to Irma as well as aid. The hurricane killed 38 people in the Caribbean, including 10 in Cuba. Flooding seen in Florida even as Hurricane Irma has weakened into a tropical storm and is moving northwards. At least 4 deaths have been reported due to the storm in Florida. About 6.5 million homes here, 2/3 of the total are without power. Relief operations are underway. The islands of Florida Keys and western parts of the U.S. state bore the brunt of the Category 4 hurricane. Some 6.3 million people in the state were told to evacuate before Irma arrived. The airports have been closed, including the Miami International Airport. The Keys are still cut off from the mainland as the 42 bridges that link them are being assessed for damage. President Donald Trump has released emergency aid for Florida, describing the hurricane as a big monster.
The Keys are going to take a while. We have not assessed the structural integrity of the bridges there. There's some early reason to believe that some of the drawbridges that were up may or may not have been bent. And so restoring those is going to take some time.
My heart goes out to the people in the Keys. I mean, there's devastation. And you know, I just hope everybody you know, survived. It's horrible what we saw. I know for our entire state, but especially for the Keys, it's going to be a long road. There's a lot of damage.
Meanwhile, at least 10 people were killed by the storm on the island of Cuba. Most of the deaths were either caused by collapsing buildings or electric shocks. Irma packed winds of more than 260 kilometers per hour by the time it made landfall in Cuba late on Friday and swept across 320 kilometers along the island's northern shore. 3/4 of the population are without power. President Raúl Castro, in a message, asked Cubans to summon organization and discipline.
Enfrentemos la recuperación con el ejemplo del comandante en jefe de la Revolución Cubana, Fidel Castro, quien con su permanente fe en la victoria y férrea voluntad nos enseñó que no existen imposibles. En estas difíciles horas, su legado nos hace fuerte y nos une.
Irma is the most powerful Atlantic storm in a decade and has caused widespread destruction on several Caribbean islands, causing at least 38 deaths. In the island of St. Martin, majority of the homes are now uninhabitable. Widespread damage has been reported in Turks and Caicos Islands, Barbuda, Anguilla, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Meanwhile, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj has said that evacuation of Indian nationals from the affected zones is her ministry's top priority. Evacuation flights have been organized by the MEA. Indian missions in US, Venezuela, France and the Netherlands are in touch with the local government officials to provide assistance to the affected Indians. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. News from the world of badminton. And World Championship silver medalist PV Sindhu will lead the Indian challenge at the Korea Super Series starting from today onwards at Seoul. Sindhu will open her campaign against Hong Kong's Cheung Nagyan Yi in the women's singles competition. Saina Nehwal and K. Srikanth will not play the series as they have decided to skip the event and they are going to prepare for the next week's Japan Open. While in the men's singles, US Open Grand Prix gold champion H.S. Pranoy will face 6-seeded Nagka Long Angus of Hong Kong in the opening round. That's all in this edition of news. Thanks so much for watching.